bought the building that we're in now and started it with, as the housing market was going like this, which I took, was able to build equity up in the house and use that equity to then
pay for that.
To pay for that.
Gotcha.
But it was constantly so the house kept getting put on hold, but if I didn't have the house, I wouldn't have had anything. Wouldn't have had the opportunities to do these things. And then I ended up buying that space. And then when we finally started to make things make sense and things we were paying down debt, we're figuring things out, systems were getting really efficient, then I went and then the economic crisis happened.
Yep.
Banking collapse, crazy to live through that from a business standpoint. And then we survived that barely. And then started to climb out of it. And then I ended up having the opportunity to take over the building next to mine. And there was somebody that had owned it. He was not a great neighbor. And again, it became more of I need to control my own destiny.
Yeah.
We shared the parking lot. His building was about to be condemned because of his neglect and just other things going on. Tenants from his building. People thought I owned that building, co-owned it, because I owned the restaurant and we didn't. So he had tenants that didn't have hot water. That
they would come to you and be
they
like,
were
"Hey,
coming
man,
to me. My door's broken. I just got broken into." My dad and I would go over and fix it just to be good neighbors, and shit like that would happen. And I'm when the opportunity came, we had no money, but again, the opportunity to buy that building came, and I'm I have to be the master of my own destiny here, and I begged, borrowed, stealed. Didn't really steal, but you get the, we begged and borrowed and figured out how to just make it happen.
Yeah.
And then spent the next 7, 8 years trying to survive,
make it make sense,
making that happen. Yeah. And then, it's one thing happens after another, and so much has happened in our industry and in the economy, and then I opened Westminster, and then coronavirus happens, and bang, everything
pulled the plug.
And I ended up having to close Westminster, and it's overnight.
Is it now
55 people I had to lay, including myself, 55 people get laid off, and it was just this. Just another chapter in the what the fuck,
the fight,
the fight, the struggle, and I've had to come to terms with that, and also rebuild and adjust, and where's the next thing going, and here we are.
What did the Westminster, was the Westminster another Nick's?
Yeah, so I started. It was Nick's on Westminster. I was trying to kind of create a different vibe. There was a hotel that was going to be built down there, and somebody asked me, to what I think about doing a Nick's down there or something like it. And I thought about doing a different concept, and then I thought about the appeal of kind of growing the brand, and creating a downtown piece that would sort of allow me to kind of do some of the things I was doing down there. Then have it find its own way, and then be able to evolve that. And and I had all these ideas and thoughts and intentions, and and then as it does, life happens, and the hotel was supposed to be open before the restaurant, and we built the restaurant to service the hotel, big and expansive, and then the hotel didn't happen, and then Corona
You're
happened,
where the hell are we gonna get our guests?
and I've got a $11,000 a month rent. I've got a $10,000, $11,000 a month loan mortgage to pay. We've got payroll was anywhere between $15,000 and $22,000 a week.
Yeah, jeez.
And a 10-year lease.
Yeah,
all this crazy stuff going on, and then within our first year of opening, and I had to make the hard decision to close it.
Just kind of close it,
and try to survive, and it was kind of a startup all over again. It was 2001 all over again, and it's just me, and it was just me. The beginning of Corona, it was just me and 2 other cooks and 2 of my key front of the house people, and we just started
takeout only
because we weren't able to do anything more than that until June or late May, June, and it was just building back up again, building, and that's kind of where we're at now. Where we're just like, what's the future going to hold? We don't know, but that's left me, reorganizing, reimagining, rethinking. Where do I want to be? Where do I want the restaurant to be? Where do I want my time, my impact? How do I want to use my platform and my voice, and like all of these questions? And for the first time, going back to what it's like to be a cook when the music stops, right? And you're just like, now you have to think about these things. Now you've got time to think about it, and you have a necessity to think about it. And how do we adapt, adjust, overcome, and reimagine where the future goes? And here we are.
How did you see how was the evolution of the food? Because when you first took over Nick's, it was a breakfast spot open.
Well, my idea with food, my food philosophy, and again, I could wax on about this for hours and hours, but like, if I have to like distill it down to some smaller sound bites, because I'm just like, talking. I'm just talking and talking and talking.
That's fine.
Like, if I have to distill it down, I would say that like my idea when I opened Nick's for food was like, at that time, fine dining, like what we mean by fine dining, right? Hard work, integrity driven, handcrafted, no corner cutting, real, wholesome ingredients, not just fine dining from a price point standpoint, right? When we think about fine, what we're really talking about is fine cooking, right?
Yeah.
Right? Gourmet, you can package it with whatever words that you want at the time or now, but it was like honest, like integrity driven, handcrafted, chef driven, real ingredients.
But did you say to yourself,
I was doing that at Agora. We made everything from scratch. It was the best of the best ingredients, no corner cutting. And I'm like, but it was inaccessible from a price point, and also there was just this pretentiousness. I was like, my family couldn't come to eat here. I couldn't afford to eat here, and there was an attitude and a inaccessibility and a stick up the assness of that lifestyle and of that thing. And part of the pomp and circumstance was kind of cool and fun, but part of it was also like, really, as somebody who grew up kind of poor and like and as it got more corporate-y in terms of the behind the scenes, it was just kept further like sucking out the love and the passion and the connection of the communal eating experience, right? So my goal for Nick's from a food perspective was to return to, like, why isn't anybody cooking this kind of food in a way that's accessible to people, price point wise, time of the day? At that time, you either did dinner and you were a serious restaurant, or you didn't. There weren't.
The breakfast
was breakfast. It was breakfast.
Yeah.
And there were so many people, and I believe me, I had so much self-doubt in the beginning. You're doing breakfast? And so many chefs and other people that would like, you're going to do eggs?
Yeah, but where the fuck were they 2 years in?
You're going to do
eating
eggs?
Brunch.
You're going to do eggs? You're going to do eggs? This was before, like, the chef counter had... This was before any of that. This was before David Chang, and took the Mamafuku. This is, right at the cusp of like when Paul Kahn was doing Blackbird in Chicago, which were similar kind of like, like let's get down and dirty and get real, right? And I was working on it not from a comparative, but like, because this is just how I felt, and there were obviously other people in the country that also felt similar things, right? Like. And it was like, I want to cook in a place where cooks can afford to eat, and that people can afford to feed, and like I want people to re-engage with the act of like breaking bread in the spiritual, like communal sense. And it was a diner, so it was a chef's counter, unintentional chef's counter. Like that's the space could only be that. It was less. It was 600 square feet, like. So anyway, that defined like the space and my want of that. Like, just like wholesome. And I did breakfast and lunch, one, so I could play music, but two, from a business perspective, thinking like nobody was doing, there were 100 places
Everybody
open for dinner.
Work dinner, yeah.
And I didn't have the money. I couldn't get a liquor license.
Yeah.
I didn't have the money for nice china, nice glassware, anything like that. All the things that I knew people would expect for nice dinner. And so I had to really eat some humble pie, serving on like plastic plates with a $12 pack for 100 silverware, and like that you could bend. They were like made out of paper clips. But it was just about the food and about the feeling and about like I was doing, the same, and integrity and artistry and thoughtfulness that went into these dinner experiences and putting it to a breakfast and a lunch experience. And it really resonated with people. And it took off faster and crazier than I could have expected. And we had, and again, it was only 18 seats, but like it became a thing, right? And like there were like, it was Sunday and there'd be like
line out the door,
just hanging out all over Broadway. And even, this was even when the Columbus was still like a dirty movie theater, and then it was only us and Julian's and White Electric on the street, and and it became a thing, and it just became a thing, and we created this thing, us and Julian's and White Electric, and it really impacted the food. And as I tried to get better and better at cooking and better at the menu started to evolve, and we got some great write-ups in the New York Times and the Boston Globe, and it was just like it was new. It was like a new thing. Like people were just like, I can get really awesome, like I can get the same quality meat and cooking for like breakfast and brunch, and it would become before brunch became a hashtag.
Yeah, exactly.
Before hashtags were hashtags, and and it was just this like, hey, like I can enjoy this other part of my day that I thought was just like, food is fuel kind of thing, right? And it just started so organically, and it was like, the first couple of days we did like 20, 30 people, and we're like, oh my God. Well, I was just like, I'd make a new soup every day. I'd bake muffins every morning, and I'd make a new soup every day. And I would send Steve, my partner, out, and he was the waiter. I was the cook. I had one other cook. It was a friend of mine, and it was just two cooks and one waiter. And I would be like, Steve, like, just here's some grilled bread and some bowls and some soup. And we would just drop them off to businesses. We just like, we didn't have a marketing budget. That was still back when magazines, it's like $10,000 a page, $5,000. Providence.
You're like,
it's
fuck
that. It wasn't even an option. It wasn't even an option.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no marketing budget. So it was just, we're going to put food in people's mouths.
Yeah.
And it catalyzed, and that became like the mantra. And it really, the journey as a chef and as a young cook and as a community member, like it became, I lived here, was working here, so that like the local thing, eat local, create local, support local, it became like not just like, it was from a like, I want to support, I want the best ingredients. Why can't I buy these? Where are they available? Why aren't there any ways for me to buy from farmers? That was before farmers markets were like a thing, before Farm Fresh, before like, it was just like, if I wanted something, I had to go drive to the farm to get it.
Yeah.
And it just, all of those things in life, and just sort of really, it was just about being fresh, wholesome, delicious, and accessible. Right. And then it's just evolved like from there. And now I look back at where we are now, and it feels, especially the beginning of the pandemic, it was just like a return to basics. Like, what can I do? What do people need right now? Because there's a service part of our service industry, right, that we often forget about as chefs and creators and living our own lives, and is that we can't exist without people, right? And we shouldn't. Like, I mean, otherwise we're just cooking for ourselves, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's fine if you're cooking to eat. But like, if you're cooking for business or if you're cooking for a purpose, right? Like you've got to feed people, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to feed people not just what you want, but what they want and what they need, right?